Hello and welcome to Diecast Restos. My name is Jason and this is a Corgi Juniors model that either went by the localised name Vauxhall Nova or the more Eurocentric Opel Corsa 1.3 SR. These models arrived just as Corgi were heading for receivership in 1983, 1 year after Opel launched the Corsa in Europe. Vauxhall introduced the Nova to British shores in 1983. While my model is in an untidy condition, this is a fresher example, with this being a slightly later facelifted example in a colour scheme I'll be applying to the Corgi. From now on, I'll refer to the car generally as the Nova, and mention the Corsa when I'm referring to specifics. It will hopefully save some confusion. Opel had teased a concept of a new two-seat roadster called the Corsa at the 1982 Geneva Motor Show. Just 6 months later, their new hatchback carrying the same name went on sale in France, Italy and Spain. It was GM's entry into the burgeoning Supermini market. Although not a Supermini itself, it succeeded Opel's Kadett City hatchback, which had gone out of production in 1979. Meanwhile, in the UK, the Vauxhall Chevette, based on the same GMT platform as Chevrolet's car of the same name, and also based on the Opel Kadett, continued on in production. While the Nova arrived in the UK in 1983, the Chevette continued to be produced through until the following year. Both the Chevette and Kadett were rear wheel instead of front wheel drive, meaning they were not Superminis in the traditional sense. Equally, the succeeding Kadett D, known as the Vauxhall Astra in the UK, was larger and served the small family car C segment. The Nova's competition would lie with Ford's Fiesta and Volkswagen's Polo. Novas were built in Zaragoza in Spain, with initial cars being 3-door hatchbacks or a 2-door 3-box saloon model. 4 and 5-door versions of each would arrive in 1984. 3-door van variants were also available, with the rear windows replaced with panels. The delay in the Nova being launched in the UK was due to a union dispute by British workers over their anger with the car being built in Spain, while rivals Ford with their Fiesta and BL with their Metro were building cars in the UK. When they did arrive, Novas were offered with a 1, 1.2 and 1.3 litre carburetted engine. Fuel injection would later arrive on the 1.2 and 1.3. An Isuzu built 1.5 litre diesel would supplement the range in 1987. Opel and Vauxhall each had differing trim levels, though the sporty SR model was shared between them. This had the 1.3 litre engine producing 69 horsepower. Requiring homologation for Group A rallying, 500 sport models were produced in 1985. These were all painted white, had distinctive decals and twin Weber carbs fitted to the 1300 engine. Power output on this rare run was up to 93 horsepower and it was capable of 112 miles per hour. A 1987 facelift saw all models receive the same grille, which had previously differed between the hatchbacks and saloons, plus it received an updated interior. A 1.6 litre fuel injected engine was added to the range, badged as a GSI, though a few pre-facelift Novas received GTE badging. This produced 100 horsepower, 97 were catalysed. Engine mapping on the GSI had been undertaken by Opel tuning specialists Irmscher. In 1988, the 1.3 litre engine was bored out to 1.4 litres, increasing torque, but the power remained the same. A model mechanically identical to the GSI with the 1.4 litre engine went on sale in the UK as the SRI. 1988 also saw the arrival of a turbocharged diesel engine from Isuzu. In 1990, the Nova again received a slight facelift, but it was notably looking aged against strong French competition from Peugeot's 106 and Renault's Clio. Until this point, the Nova had been very popular, namely in the UK. Vauxhall saw their greatest number of Nova sales in 1989 with 70,000 sold, making it the 7th best-selling car in the country. Nearly 500,000 were sold in the UK alone. In total, 3.1 million were built in just over 10 years of production. It would be replaced by the Corsa B in 1993, which saw Vauxhall drop the Nova nameplate in favour of a unified naming convention. Corgi's model arrived in 1983, coinciding with the car's UK launch. A blank space was left on the base where names would usually be found. This plastic piece incorporated both front and rear bumpers, all of the side trim, and the front grille, so it was quite extensive, keeping the cast metal to a minimum. It was showcased in a 1983 Corgi catalogue, painted in a golden yellow shade with opaque black windows. It is likely this version was a pre-pro prototype. Production versions were most commonly found painted red with clear windows and whiz wheels fitted. The rear opening hatch usually had a black tampograph printed onto it. The rear glass panel isn't held in particularly securely, so it's often the case that this is missing on pre-owned examples. Interiors on the first iterations could be white or yellow. A dark blue variant is also available, but it isn't quite as common as the red. Following Metoy's bankruptcy in late 1983, stock continued to be liquidated. Some unusual variations to Junior's models popped up around this time, using various leftover supplies. They had a management buyout in spring 1984, and so production of the Nova Corsa resumed. Bodies were now painted red, yellow or white. Red cars, akin to the pre-bankruptcy issue, had yellow Corsa graphics printed onto them. These probably didn't see daylight in the domestic market. The yellow cars had a thin red belt line on them, reflective of the Nova SR. White-bodied cars could have yellow, silver and black stripes, Opel printed on the bonnet, and their logo on the roof. They could also have orange fading to black patterns on the bonnet, and could be found with a lighter grey base. As part of a promotional campaign with BP, a silver Nova was produced widely. These are easily distinguishable from the rest of the range as they carried a cast metal base instead of plastic. This was due to BP demanding a toy that had a greater air of quality about it. The casting is a much nicer product on the whole, though the yellow and green of the BP crest and Visco Nova wording take the shine off it a bit. It's difficult to say when production ended on Corgi's Corsa Nova model. It didn't get amalgamated into the Hot Wheels line like many of its contemporaries after Mattel's 1989 takeover of the brand. It's likely the stocks of the Nova had dried up by then. Back to my custom now, as I follow moulded lines to fill out the yellow belt line. I think Opel generally had yellow belt lines on the Corsa SR and Vauxhall red on the Nova, reflective of the company's own corporate colours. However, I love the yellow, white, black and grey colour combo of Opel. Now here I did attempt to use decals to replicate the rear light clusters. They partially wrap around the body onto the sides, but there just wasn't enough real estate there for the decals to adhere to. Instead, I chose to remove them and their sticking out edges in favour of a drawn in set using Sharpies. It's not ideal, but with a dash of Ammo's wet effects, I can get them looking fairly realistic. By now, you've probably noticed the grey B-pillars, door mirrors and boot lid surround. Well, these cars were famous for their fading plastics, a plague that continued to afflict the 1990s Corsas. As a nod to this, I decided to give it grey instead of fresh black plastic. I'm confident that the final result will look better that way, but you tell me in the comments what you think. This boot lid was a bit of a menace to refit. I'd actually already reattached the rear screen, but that got pushed out as I fought to fit the hatch. Eventually we get there though, and I secure the rear window with some Yoo-Hoo adhesive off camera. Here were the parts that make up Corgi's Nova. I haven't done too much to the main transparency other than polish it and draw in the amber of the indicators. The interior I've recoloured a period grey and completed some of the dashboard detailing. Finally, the base push fits over those two too narrow to tap rivet posts. This was how Corgi's Vauxhall Nova or Opel Corsa was looking when I set about modifying it. So many of the real cars were modified in the late 80s, 90s and early 2000s because they were a cheap option with lots of potential. The car weighed barely anything and could be a lethal pocket rocket with the right engine inside it. With this scruffy Corgi though, I just wanted to give it a stock SR look with some period correct wheels and some period correct paint fade. I spent an unhealthy amount of time wondering what colour I should paint this. SR Novas look great in a variety of colours, from yellow to red to blue to black. But my favourite from traipsing over hundreds of photos is the Opel look, white with a bright yellow beltline. As I said before, I've drawn in the plastic B-pillars, door mirrors and boot lid surround in grey as a nod towards the perennial colour fade these cars suffered from. The wheels I've had sat around for a while now, and the quality gain in recent years is really notable, as sadly these have distinct printing lines on them. The model did get one decal, that classic square Vauxhall badge in the centre of the grille, following on from the rear light failure. Let me know your thoughts on this build in the comments and leave a like if you enjoyed it. But all that leaves me to say is thanks for watching and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye for now.